Welcome to the Darkstream. This is going out to the Big Bear, mostly because I was not planning on doing a Darkstream tonight. Had some meetings and so forth, but they didn't take as long as expected. And so I thought, well, actually, I didn't think. Owen just said, "Oh, come on, man!" So here we are. And I'm going to revisit the topic that we talked about a couple days ago because I ended up nuking the stream because I frankly didn't think it was particularly good. Oh, I forgot to turn that off. There we go. Sorry about that. Had a bit of an echo going. Anyhow, that should do it. So, things are going well, and we'll be talking more about that in the near future. But what I want to talk about tonight is a topic that I've mentioned and that Owen has been dealing with in some detail lately. And that's the topic of fear, which I think is very appropriate given the way that this is the anniversary of the 9/11 attacks and so forth. And sorry about not sending out the notifications. As I mentioned, you might not have understood with the echoes. I wasn't planning to do a stream tonight. I had some meetings, but they're done, and the Big Bear suggested that I hop on and do a stream. So I decided, you know what? I've got time and let's do it. And as Drew Jabert points out, Owen did do a great job today. I don't watch a lot of streams, but I ended up watching that one because that repetition of those Time magazine covers of the last 30 and 40 years, showing the fear piled upon despair, it really demonstrated how psychologically damaging the mainstream media is. A lot of us are traumatized to some degree by this constant state of low-level fear that the mainstream media attempts to instill in each of us. But I am going to quibble with one thing that Owen said. He talked about the wizard spell of the only thing to fear being fear itself. Now, I don't know about the whole the wizard aspect. That's not my area. That's his area. So I'm happy to defer to him on the rhetorical effectiveness of that and so forth. But I think another element that is important to keep in mind is that statement almost borders on blasphemy. If the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, and the only thing to fear is fear itself, then you are not fearing what you are told to fear. Fear God only. Don't fear those who can kill the body. Fear him who can send the soul to hell. And people who are already Christians is when Paul talks about how we are not given the spirit of fear. People often say, what difference does it make when, what difference does it make being a Christian or not? There's so many people that are good people, that are fundamentally moral people and so forth. Why do they need to be Christian? What difference does it make? And the thing is, even if you're not looking at the immortal aspects, even if you're not looking at the eternal aspects, you can see the difference. You can absolutely see the difference between the Christian and the non-Christian, even when it comes to practical matters today. Why? Because the Christian isn't given a spirit of fear. The Christian is given the spirit of hope. That's why the martyrs go to their deaths singing. That's why Christianity looks so incredibly crazy to the non-Christian, even to the non-Christian who respects Christianity at times, because they can't understand the lack of fear of the things of this world, and they can't understand the hope when there is no obvious hope to be found. Cholito Bear, who officially has the best bear name, other than maybe Behold a Pale Horse Bear. I always like that one. He said it's one of Owen's best streams to date. I agree. In fact, if you haven't seen Owen's stream today with the Time magazine covers, I definitely recommend that you watch it, because it is truly spell-breaking to see the cover after cover after cover after cover over and over again, trying to instill fear in the people who see it. And it is absolutely spell-shattering to see that Amazon is burning cover and realize that they've been pushing the same nonsense for 30 years. You know, I once did the math when Sting made a particularly dumb statement about the size of the daily burning field or daily burning acreage in the Amazon. And I pointed out how, if the numbers he was citing were true, that the Amazon would be gone in 5 years. It's still around. Doesn't mean there's not a problem. Doesn't mean there's not things that you would wish the stewards of the forest to do. But it's not something to be afraid about. The lungs of the planet are not disappearing. You know, Adam Smith has a good point. He said the covers of those Time magazines eventually became funny as he was showing them. But see, that's the beauty of breaking the spell of fear. Once you see past it, once you see past the fear, once you are no longer enspelled, you don't even have the capacity to feel that fear anymore. And when somebody tries to, booga booga, cast one of those spells on you, your reaction is to laugh, because it's so ineffective. It's so useless. And it reminds you of something that Jesus said when he says, the prince of this world is coming. He has no power over me. And he has no power over those who belong to him. And so I'm not saying that only Christians can be fearless. I'm simply saying that we have been instructed, and it is intrinsic to our belief system to understand that which is attempting to instill fear is evil. If someone is attempting to instill fear in you, you know that they are, at the very least, a servitor of evil. They're trying to break your spirit. They're trying to demoralize you in both senses, both primary senses of the term. Anthony has a good point. The Bible says not to fear hundreds of times. Exactly. Patrick Bergen points out, Jesus chastised even his closest allies in the boat for being afraid of the storm. We don't have a spirit of fear. And so, you just need to look to the cross. And it's interesting too how, let's see, does this mean the fear of demographic replacement is poor rhetoric? Yes, absolutely it is. Look at the people who try to run around preaching about white genocide. How effective have they been? I told them several years ago that that is horrible rhetoric. Terrible rhetoric. You know, the if you want to win the demographic war, Owen is going about it the right way. Have kids. The future belongs to those who show up for it. This is our land. These are our people. Speak the truth. When you do those things, people respond positively. And so, and when you see people preaching fear, then you know that the Spirit of the Lord is not in them. And obviously, it's not in the alt-retards who are, running around constantly bitching about immigrants and people of color and Jews and this and that and the other thing. But their whole perspective is fundamentally diagnostic. They're diagnosing the disease, but they're not providing any prescription. They're not providing any treatment. They're not showing people what to do. And so, if you want to keep your own country, it's very simple. Pick your own cotton. Build your own industry. Buy and sell and support each other. Get married. Have children. Raise them in the truth. If you do that, you will live. If you do that, you will survive. If you do that, you have no reason to fear. And that's the answer. No, the prince of this world was not Vespasian. Vespasian was not alive when Jesus was talking about the prince of this world. He's talking about a spiritual being. How do you get over fear of death? Well, I think the older that you get and the more tired you get, the easier it is to get over it. Socrates, I think, put it well when he said, if death is nothingness, then it is like the best night's sleep you've ever had. So, but I think the main thing is that if you put your trust in Jesus, that you will find that the fear gets flooded out. Remember I told the story of holding that woman's hand who was afraid of flying when we were coming in for a rough landing. And so the more that you focus on taking away the fear of others, the less room you have for feeling fear yourself. The best of the dread ilk is a man named Bo. It's not his real name, it's the name he comments under. But he is the best of us. And he has had at least 2 near brushes with death that I know of. And he is absolutely and utterly fearless about those matters, because practically every week he puts a comment up on the blog. Always off topic. He's one of the, not always off topic, usually off topic. but he's the one person who's always permitted to put up off-topic posts, because what he's putting up is usually the story of him talking to someone and that person coming to Christ, coming to Jesus. He spends a lot of his time with the homeless. He spends a lot of his time in the shelters and the prisons and so forth. He's truly a role model. And, the man is afraid of nothing because his focus on helping others drives out fear. In fact, actually, which, as usual, we come back to a biblical concept. Perfect love drives out fear. So there's your answer. Yeah, Brightai Bear says, finding God is another good way of no longer fearing death. And, you even see that in the philosophies of the world and in some of the more philosophical pagan religions of the world. If you look at Siddhartha, the genuine Buddhists don't fear death. And so when you look at this, again, I return you to the statement: we're not given a spirit of fear. All those Time magazine covers, teaching fear of everything from quicksand to AIDS to global warming to burning forests to nuclear weapons to Muslims flying jet planes. It's all a lie. It's all meant to psychologically traumatize you. Don't permit it. When you see that stuff, just tell yourself, it's a lie. Yeah, the Time magazine thing was yesterday. It's not today's stream. It's yesterday's stream. Zachary Taylor said, I remember them saying we were going to run out of water years ago. Yeah, you're going to run out of water. You're going to run out of oil. Paul Ehrlich lost that bet, saying that we were going to run out of everything, and he was wrong. We didn't run out of any of it. Does that mean that we're never going to? No, of course not. Are there bad things happening? Yes. Right now, possibly the worst thing that is happening is the population explosion in Africa. That's probably going to be an absolute nightmare for everybody around the world. Is China going to deal with it? Is Europe going to sink the ships? Is there going to be the advent of Afro-European civilization of the sort that Umberto Eco fatalistically predicted 15 years ago? We don't know. The fact that we don't have fear doesn't mean that we are unaware of what is happening. But it gives us the awareness and the responsibility to take action about it. Again, we speak the truth. When people lie, that's when you see things like Live Aid. Absolute disaster. That's when you see the whole road to hell being paved with good intentions. Brandon O'Neill says, back in the 80s and 90s, it was ozone layer and rainforest. I think ozone layer was a little bit, that was more 90s if I recall. Or maybe I remember that there was the acid rain. That didn't get much, James remembers the acid rain. That didn't get much traction. AIDS got a lot of traction until it became clear that if you weren't a sodomite or a drug user, intravenous drug user, there was virtually no chance you were going to get it. Um, now they're pushing the climate change and so forth. The key thing is that it's all focused on teaching you to be afraid to grow up, afraid to have relationships, afraid to get married, and afraid to have children. That's the goal. Satan doesn't want you to be fruitful and multiply. He wants you to be afraid. He wants you to be bitter. He wants you to be resentful. He wants you to be lonely. And he wants you to die alone, having left nothing behind. That is his objective. So, somebody said they'd like to see the Rhodesian Ridgeback. I can bring that. There's Mazzy. Unfortunately, we got some less than positive news yesterday. He's doing okay. It's not bad news particularly, but unfortunately his some of his numbers have dropped again. We don't know why. They're looking into it, but for those of you who have an interest in Mazzy, it's a good time to pray for his full recovery again. Watcher Bear says that's a cute dog. He's a great dog. We call him the teacup Ridgeback because he thinks he's always small enough to fit in your lap. He's actually wearing that blanket because for whatever reason his fur has gotten very, very thin. We call him the Velveteen Ridgeback now. But he is very much loved, and not just by our family. Honestly, probably not even probably. He's the most likable dog I've ever known. He's Space Bunny's dog, and needless to say, he'll be getting the best of treatment. But we'll be on top of it. So anyhow, that's our pup Mazzy. One of the four. We actually have, as some of you may know, we actually have 4 dogs now because we ended up adopting a Vizsla who was in some need of rescue and so forth. Baron von Metzgenderstein said, would like to hear your thoughts on Fantasy General 2. I'm going to do a full review of it once I play more, but at the moment, my initial reaction is negative. I think it owes more to Fantasy Wars than it does to the original Fantasy General, and I think that it's a bit of a disappointment. I think they made a big mistake going with 3D rather than 2D. Awesome. Finding Logos is leaving to go see The Who live in Minneapolis. That's excellent. Enjoy it. Could Trump colonize parts of Europe with Christian white settlers from the USA? No. No, he could not. Thoughts on German Shepherd dogs? I'm not a big fan. I'm really not a particularly big fan of German Shepherds. 5'5" Bear says, the Ridgeback being the most likable dog is saying something coming from a Vizsla guy. I feel the same way about my parents' Vizsla. I love Vizslas. Vizslas are still my favorite dogs in general. But this particular Ridgeback is very unusual. It was kind of interesting because when Space Bunny went down to visit him when he was too young to too young to take home, uh, he made a beeline for her and jumped in her lap, and has basically been entirely inseparable from her ever since. And we used to joke about him. Uh, like if she would get off the couch to go do something in the kitchen or whatever, he'll wait about 10 or 15 seconds, and then suddenly he'll like sit up, and we call that the mommy needs me look. And you can try anything to dissuade him, and you can't. He's just convinced mommy needs him. And so he literally follows her around everywhere she goes. So but yeah, just and it's funny because of course, he was very very underweight when he was at the peak of his illness last December, and he was on an IV and everything, and we were desperately trying to get him to eat, which was nearly impossible. And but now it's funny because um, he likes to let us know that when we're at the table that he too likes lasagna or whatever it is we're eating. And it really irritates Space Bunny because I'll always give him something, and and he'll actually come up and like paw you, um, which sounds a little bit annoying, but it's actually rather endearing. So, Sable Palm Bear says, "Hey Vox, first time catching you live. Well, I'm glad you're able to make it. This is a Big Bear inspired theme. Like I said, I was not planning to do one tonight, but um, he had some work to do and wanted to have something to listen to. So here we are. Vox, what do you think that will be the spark that will cause civilization's downfall of any Africa's overpopulation? I don't think it will cause civilization's downfall, but it could. It could. It just depends on whether they're able to, whether there's enough cultural and societal self-confidence to defend their borders. Right now, America has been demoralized. And we know this. I mean, we were told that America was being demoralized. That KGB defector discusses it, and all the stuff that you hear. The Shapirus and Pragers of the world successfully attacked the concept of America. They successfully convinced 3 generations of Americans that America was an idea. Total nonsense. Now they're attacking the concept of Western civilization. They're trying to undermine and subvert the concept of Western civilization because they hate Greece, they hate Rome, and they hate Christianity. And they're not too fond of Europe either. And so they're trying to demoralize the entire West. That's why you started seeing, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, Britain is a nation of immigrants. Sweden is a nation of immigrants. Anyone you see saying nation of immigrants is a liar straight from the pit of hell. Straight from the pit of hell. Yeah, you're banned, Shaco. Any of you morons who try to tell me what to do, it's not happening. So anyhow, who is doing it? Yeah, see people like that say, name them. It's not all the Jews. If you name the Jews, you're lying. The whole thing is fundamentally spiritual. It is being driven by Satan, and it is being put. They're not responsible for it. They have anything to do with it. you know. Taylor Larson says, I'm listening to A Throne of Bones at work and I'm loving it. I was almost sweating myself listening to Corvus speak with his brother. Great stuff, Vox. Thanks, I appreciate it. A Throne of Bones, by the way, is it's the first big epic fantasy novel in my Arts of Dark and Light series. You can listen to about a 90-minute extended audio sample either here on this channel or on Unauthorized. Christopher McCullough asks, do people like Prager and Shapiro live in a constant state of fear? Yes, they do. You know, they worship evil and like eyes because he knows that once he stops being useful, the crocodiles most of the time. You know, Rogan won't name Owen. I'm not even permitted to set foot on the Google Mountain View campus. There are other things that I can't talk about where my name is literally not permitted. You know, think about the level of fear you have to have inside you to be unable to even name the person. Tiverton Bear said, this topic reminds me of the Tower of Babel. It should. It's directly connected. Vox said, now that you've got a comic series about Thor, well, we don't have one yet. We're planning to do one. Midgard, the epic Thor. Have you considered doing one about Camazotz, which is ancient Mayan Batman? I thought Camazotz was the planet where it lived. But, say la vie. No, Shapiro did not talk about his favorite sheets when we were both at WorldNet Daily. I was not aware that he was so enthusiastic about bed sheets. Skepticism is wise, cynicism is darkness. That's correct. John Yossarian says, how does it feel to know people quake when they hear your name? I tend to find it amusing, actually. I'm not sure which I find more amusing. That or the way that people get a bit sarcastic and take umbrage at the fact that people call me Supreme Dark Lord. They're like, well, I don't see what's so Dark Lord about you and so forth. And it's always a bit amusing. It's like, go read my Wikipedia page and then realize that doesn't even begin to tell 10% of it. Poison Squid says he just bought Throne of Bones himself and has never been more excited to read a book. Well, I hope you won't be disappointed, but yeah, I'll be interested to know what you think when you finish it. Don't jump in and say anything while you're reading it. Wait till you finish it and then share your opinion. Norcall, Vox, can I ask you a serious question? What are you afraid of? I'm not going to talk about my fears here. You know, why would I do that? I don't mind mentioning, however, that when I was younger, I was susceptible to the fears of my generation, which of course are quicksand and the Bermuda Triangle. I was definitely afraid of both. Welcome, Krullerized, new member. OKC Bear says, I convinced someone yesterday it's Shapiro. They were losing it. A few shekels to support the channel. Thanks, Krullerized. Again, new members, if you want notifications, which of course I didn't send out tonight. This was a last minute thing. But if you want notifications, please send me your email. I don't get your email just from you becoming a member. Norcal says, I respect your answer. Good, I appreciate that. Well, yes, of course. I mean, meerkats are the leading cause of death in Africa. And so Anyone with the right mind is terrified of the piranha of the Serengeti, clearly. Um, Barebones said, start as Marcus Aurelius tonight. What a good read that no one is picking up, except for the unauthorized and the bears, that is. Well, I don't think that's quite fair. Marcus Aurelius is still reasonably well taught in philosophy classes, but they really only, you know, touch upon his writings. I think that it's helpful to read the whole thing, or at least the first two books. I'm not scared of my wife going to the dog shelter. I'm scared of my wife going to the cat shelter. Um, I'm allergic to cats, and so uh, some years ago, uh, my wife decided that we'd get a cat, but it'd be an outside cat. Okay, fine. And so she's like, well, the vet uh, actually has a cat. She brought it back, from like I have no idea where, some country somewhere. She's like, she brought it back from this place where they got a bunch of stray cats, and but the problem is, you know, it's with its sister, and so, she really doesn't want to split them up. Is it okay if I get two cats? But it'd be good because then they can keep each other company outside and all this sort of thing. So I said, well, of course you can't split the brother and sister up. So anyhow, so she goes and she comes back with three cats. I said, wait, what happened? We were going to get one cat, and then you said it was two cats. How do we have three cats? What happened? And she said, oh, well, actually, I knew that if I told you that there were actually two brothers, or a brother and a sister, that you wouldn't want to get any of them. So I just asked you about the two, and I figured you'd be okay with the three. So total female manipulation. But what do you do when you get the eyes, the please, please, so c'est la vie. Um, Drew Chabert says, and they became indoor cats, I'm guessing. Sort of. Actually, I have to admit, it all worked out more or less. Um, One of them got killed in the road while roaming, um, and that was kind of traumatic for the whole house. So they ended up we ended up letting them move into the attic, which actually turned out to be great because we briefly had a bat problem before they moved in, and that completely took care of the bat problem. And as long as they stay up there, I don't have any allergy problems, so it all worked out. Um, yeah, so SB pulling out the Bene Gesserit witchery. Yeah, exactly. So, um, no, the thing is you have to understand. You have to. If you came across a dire wolf, how long would it be before Space Bunny would try to adopt it? I would say about 15 seconds. Um, you got to keep in mind it's not just Space Bunny, it's the kids too. I mean, they're all animal lovers, and but yeah, she is pretty bad though. Um, and the thing is that the dogs especially love her. They absolutely love her, and so um, she's always, look, he's following me home. I'm like, his owner is right there. You can't you can't bring him home. It's not happening. So yeah, however long it takes to ride the direwolf home, you know. Um, But yeah, it's you know, it's all about what's important to you. You know, I want the I want my wife to be happy, and it's very, very clear that being surrounded by lots of large dogs makes her very happy. And there is something that's really warm and reassuring about it. It is kind of funny. You walk in and she'll be like sitting on the couch with her computer, ridge back here, Vishla on the couch on the other side of the room, and another Vishla on the bed on the floor. It's kind of funny because I walked in with a friend and all the dogs just look up, and my friend just like froze and said, "That's a lot of dog." And you think about it, it is. I mean, the smallest one probably goes 40 pounds. So, Clark Smith says, "Hey Vox, I enjoy all your streams, but especially enjoyed Darkstream 480, the Bible lawyers. Thank you for that. What's your opinion of the Pentecostals speaking in tongues? Thanks." I think speaking in tongues are legitimate and real, but I think that there is an amount of fakery due to the social pressure in a lot of evangelical and Pentecostal churches. The phenomenon is real, but people are so intent. You see people teaching, well, you get the Bible lawyers. The Bible lawyers get involved and they start saying, well, you're not a real Christian until you've been filled with the Spirit. And you're not filled with the Spirit if you haven't spoken in tongues. So therefore, you're not a real Christian until you speak in tongues. And the next thing you know, you've got these people who are concerned that they're not a real Christian going, ba 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 ba, just desperately trying to speak in tongues. It's like, you're not speaking in tongues. You're just making nonsense noises. So, isn't speaking in tongues satanic? No, obviously not. I mean, speaking in tongues is right in the Bible. So, there's a difference between being filled with the Holy Spirit and being possessed by demons. Very different things. Peterson praised Solzhenitsyn. I'm guessing avoid. No, not at all. Solzhenitsyn is great, but you definitely won't see Peterson recommending that you read 2 centuries together. So. Yeah. I should do some of the super chats here. Where are we? Okay. I missed one last night. So, in history, has a ruling class or elite sought the total destruction of the classes lower than them and their nation? Is globalism a new idea? Yes. Ruling classes and elites habitually seek the domination and sometimes destruction of the classes lower than them. One of the oldest patterns in European history is the king and the people versus the aristocracy. If you read a book like The History of England or even Warwick the Kingmaker, both by Charles Oman, you'll see this pattern playing out again and again and again. And it's still playing out today. You're seeing it today with Boris Johnson and the British government allied with the people against the parliament, which is the new aristocracy. Is globalism a new idea? No, globalism is a very old idea. It's Tower of Babel 2.0. It would be very reasonable to just refer to them as the Babelists. Charles Carlson says, have a drink on me, Vox. Thanks, Charles. I will do so tomorrow. John Z says, keep up the good fight. Vox, God bless you. Thanks, John. Likewise. Hans Laga said, did you and your family do anything to prepare for Y2K? A little bit, but not much. I mean, we more use that as an excuse to do some of the basic prep stuff that everybody should always do. Marie Golay says, I fear men named Carol. That is all. Okay. Well, Carol Quigley's dead, so you're safe. And we're caught up. So that's good. Oh, one more. What do you think of replacement theology? My pastor denies John 8:44-45, 1 Thessalonians 2:14-16, Revelations 2:9. This tendency of the church changing the gospel since 1965 scares me. Well, it should. The Bible's very clear on what fate is in store for those who try to change it, especially when they're trying to change it because of people who are not Christians. A lot of the stuff that's happened post 1965, anytime you see anybody talking about Judeo-Christianity, you know who they serve. You know that they're speaking falsehood. It is false. The North Shore Bear says, I mistakenly bought 12 Rules for Life and just couldn't finish it. Then the lobster showed his true scales. It all came together then. Yeah, exactly. Let's see. No, I've never been to Greece. Let's see. Nationalist Bear said, just finished the Western Civilization videos on Unauthorized. Super informative and impressive. Thanks. I really need to get going on my new Voxiversities. Do you think the buildup of the middle class in the 50s and 60s was intentional or unintended consequence of prosperity in the West? It was unintended. It happened because the industrial infrastructure of the United States was the only one in the world at the time. So, but that promptly got ruined very shortly thereafter. Skullduggery Nerdbear the Reprehensible says, I'll be sleeping in bear country in Yellowstone and laughing with bears in Portland soon, God willing. Thanks to Unauthorized. Well, it's really thanks to you. In fact, I'm actually pleased to be able to say that we have worked out a solid arrangement to handle our infrastructure and give us some room for growth. And so, it's very important that those of you who are subscribers keep subscribing, because that, of course, is how we're able to fund the infrastructure. And we will keep cranking out the content, and introducing new stuff on a regular basis. Movement Explorer said, my friend who turned me back to the right got super butthurt when I criticized the lobster and Shapiro. It's pretty common. It's just where people find it hard to believe that the people that helped open their eyes are not necessarily good people. Any update on Social Galactic? I got to get on that. I've been very busy with a couple projects that I think you guys know about, including the unauthorized infrastructure. Now that we've got that getting settled and the Indiegogo matter has been resolved, I'll have a little bit more time to deal with some of these other issues. Scott says, the Vic voice actor case isn't over, it's barely begun. That's correct, although it certainly hasn't begun well. Are there any lessons future SJW victims can learn from how Vic fought back? Well, I think Vic made a big mistake in relying primarily upon a lawyer. His lawyer is supposed to be pretty good. I've actually talked to him before, but lawyers are way too dependent upon procedure and process. They don't think strategically. They're completely tactical, and they're completely limited to within their little box. They don't think outside the box either. And so to turn your strategy over to the lawyer is a bad idea. You need to find lawyers who will work for you, not who will, do ever. I mean, you want to be working out your defense and your strategy yourself, and then have the lawyer implement it. You don't want them concocting the strategy, because for the most part, the way that they think just is not likely to be successful. Also, I think it's a mistake if you're at all a public figure. I think that in most cases, trying to prove defamation is going to be really tough, because it's very easy for them to say, well, I didn't know. Unless you have them caught red-handed saying, let's slander this person and say this thing that we know isn't true about him, you're probably not going to win, especially in the States. Rock Lee Marina says, Nick actually seems competent, but sadly he can't practice in Texas. Well, it's funny because Nick and I first encountered each other vehemently disagreeing about some stuff with regards to trademark law and so forth. But I've actually come to respect the guy and like the guy. Might not agree with him on everything, but I think that but also I think that there may have been some dirty pool in that Vic voice actor case, because if I recall correctly, what they were supposed to be doing that day was very different than what they were doing. And so that, I think, factors into it somewhere. And it won't surprise me if some of that stuff gets overturned. Marie Golay says lawyers are less than optimal frontmen. I absolutely agree. Ryder Die Bear says, hey Vox, when people have children, do you think there's a change in the brain? There's definitely a change in the way you feel, the way you behave, and frankly, just the lack of sleep initially alone is probably enough to change your brain. He says, I don't have kids, and I feel that people that do are on a different level than me. Well, they are. They are on a level of maturity that you have not reached yet. You're still thinking about yourself. It's not until you get to the point where you care considerably more about others than you do about yourself. They are literally on a higher level than you are. You can't understand it. You won't understand it entirely unless you have children of your own. People say, oh, my pets are my children. Well, no, they're not. Yes, you love them. I'm a dog person. I assure you, it would probably appall a lot of you. Probably wouldn't surprise many of you, but it would probably appall a lot of you if you had any idea, what I spent just to help keep that dog alive, and I don't regret it for a second. It meant that we didn't, go out to dinner or buy anything for quite a while. Couldn't care less, if nothing else, gave me incentive to, made it easier to lose some weight and keep wearing the same jeans I've worn since college. But, so, I'm just pointing this out to say, I understand loving an animal, but I assure you that it doesn't compare to the love that you have for your child. It's something that you can't even, you can't describe, and frankly, you can't even, sometimes you can't even understand. So, let me see here. Somebody asked about PewDiePie and the ADL. Oh, I think that he is trying to. Um, I think he's trying to get himself off the target list, and I don't think it's going to work. I think that he is. Um, I think he's showing weakness, and I think that when you show weakness to SJWs, that they view that as a signal to attack you some more. Brian Clough says, Clough said, I always thought you ran Vox.com, so when Shapiro called you racist, I believed him. After checking you out because of Big Bear, I think Shapiro is stupid. Shapiro's not stupid. He's just not nearly as intelligent as he would like you to believe. However, he is considerably more evil than you probably imagine. Drew Gibert says, you spent our super chats. I say that jokingly, but I wouldn't regret my money going to that. Well, you know, actually, that's not possible, to be blunt, because I don't think I was able to get any super chats until several months after that had been resolved. But yeah, I mean, money being fungible, you know, I mean, it's kind of funny because, you know, people will sometimes say, you know, they're a little surprised at the way that, you know, we live very modestly, I would say, and you know, but like Space Bunny says, you know, hey, some people buy their wives jewelry. You know, they spend all their money at the jewelry store or on, you know, clothes and that sort of stuff, or vacations and whatever. I buy my wife stuff at the vet. You know? You know, and I think it's, you know, again, if it's love, it's good. If it's love, it's true. And to get back to our original subject, perfect love drives out fear. So, you know, if there's one message that I would continue to tell you guys is don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to speak the truth. Don't be afraid to love the people you love. Don't be afraid to tell the people that you care about them. Don't be afraid to tell your wife that you want to have another kid. Don't be afraid to have another kid because you're worried about college costs or something stupid like that, you know? Cowboy Bear says, damn, Vox, help a bear out. You could have had my wife work on him and help pay off her $250,000 student debt for her DVM. To be honest, it almost certainly would have been cheaper to fly her out here and have her move in for a month. But anyhow, so no, it's not true that there's nothing to fear but fear itself. The only thing you should fear is God. Fear God only. But fortunately, God loves you. So, no, it's all good. It's all good. So, all right. Well, have a good evening. Thanks for tuning. Let's see if we can actually manage this. Let's see if we can manage this going out. We'll see. Yeah, there we go.